to the What's Happening music show. It has been an absolute hot minute, but Jamie and Michelle are back and we are so excited for the show today. We're going to be talking to an amazing artist called C-Beem about their music and their creative process. We've got some awesome discoveries that we're going to share with you and some super, super sick songs. So sit tight and enjoy this show. Okay, so to kick things off, we're going to start with Jamie and his first discovery. So Jamie, what have you got for us?
Awesome. Well, it's great to be back, Michelle. As I say, it feels like it's been a while, but that's okay. We've been discovering plenty of music since our last show. So I'm going to kick us off with a UK-based producer called Jab-Stamina. Now, some of you who follow us on Twitter will see we've posted and shared some of his music quite a bit, but I'm a huge fan of this guy. So he is a producer that focuses on house music or deep house with a bit of trance, a bit of club, and a bit of kind of, just general electronic dance music thrown in. So his Facebook bio say he's predominantly house, but I feel like a lot of those genres are all fused together in what you listen to him. So he really is a multi-genre kind of electronic-based producer, and the stuff that he produces I think is really great. So where should you start if you want to listen to him? Well, there's really two places. First of all, we can't ignore his latest single, which is called Into My Eyes, which embodies both that kind of trancey vibe that I was talking about, some really nice, low, deep bass lines that help really drive the whole song along, and there's also some very bright and eclectic moments which just give it a nice melody, and the synth tones just echo through, and it just sounds really, really great. And the thing I love about it is there's everything from your low sounds to your higher mid resonances that are echoed throughout the whole song, as well as having a bit of an 80s and 90s trance feel to it. So there's a lot going on, and I really, really enjoyed that single. But the one thing I also would make sure that you go and check out, he has an EP called Power, which has got two versions of Power. I think this is an extended version and then a kind of a radio edit. And I just really love this because I think this embodies a lot of the sound that he embraces. It's very much more house feeling, but the synth is so profound in this, basically in this whole EP, the synth is profound, and he's really good at making nice melodies which are really, really catchy, but also having a really, really good mix of the low sounds and the high sounds that bring everything together that sounds really, 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 really good. So I think those melodies will captivate fans, and I think they'll sound brilliant through massive PA systems, because not only are the songs produced well, but they're really, really well balanced, and they really sound great. So even if you're not a fan of massive electronic music, he's definitely someone I think that should be heard, because I think his music will become part of extended mixes when house DJs jump back into clubs. So I think definitely watch out for Jab-Stamina to become a pretty big thing in the future.
Awesome. And I think we're all looking forward to that moment when we get our house DJs back in the clubs with us there too.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my first discovery for today is a band called Flint from Brisbane, Australia. And so they do like sort of alternative indie rock. So they like kind of describe themselves as like if the Arctic Monkeys, Black Sabbath, and Soundgarden had a love child, like they would be the product. Like, I'm not gonna lie though, when I was listening to their single, I got a little bit of like the Fratellis like vibe from them as well, which is like absolutely an amazing thing because I love the Fratellis. But yeah, so they've got their first single out, which they actually released just on June 25th. So this is like hot off the press, guys. It's called Colors, and it's really good. Like I said, like I got Fratelli's vibes, although like I absolutely do see the Arctic Monkeys, Black Sabbath, Soundgarden love child as well. Maybe the Fratellis are love child of those three as well. But anyways, so yeah, it's really, really good though. They've got their first EP is going to be dropping real soon in July. It's called Follow the Embers, so keep your eyes peeled for that. They're also making a music video they're making a music video at the minute And so that'll be out really soon as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that too. So yeah, some really great stuff coming from this brand new band in terms of releasing music. So check them out. Highly recommend.
That sounds awesome, and a love child of all those bands together. I mean, surely nothing that comes out of that can be anything other than absolutely amazing. So I'm going to go and check that out, because that sounds right up my street. It sounds proper indie rock banger. That's going to be awesome. So I'll definitely check that out. And as we're talking about indie rock, my next band actually very much falls in the indie rock category, and this is another band from the UK. They're from Bath, in fact, and they are called the Nova Teens. Now, when I first listened to these guys, I just was like, it's another indie rock band. And actually, when I listened to the first song I listened to, which is Joyride, which is where I recommend you start listening, once I got past the first chorus, I was actually like, there's something else to this band. They are not just an indie rock staple. It's not just a sound that we have heard regurgitated many times. There's actually a really tight, well-knit group of musicians under this that have just a great presence to them, and also their vocal abilities are quite good. The chorus, I think, in Joyride really demonstrates quite a dynamic vocal setup. I think I'm not sure whether there's backing vocals or it's just the main vocal who's harmonizing with himself, but really I was quite taken aback by how good that was once I got into the second half of the song. And that's not saying anything about the first half. The first half is good, but just it started like just any indie rock song probably would, and then by the end of it I was like, wow, this is pretty good. And so I started listening to some of their other stuff. There's a song called The Fear, there's a song called 5, and they've also recently done a Wasted Youth EP, which I had to listen to the whole EP, and same sort of story. It starts off, sounds very contemporary indie, but then shows that they are quite tight. There's good musicianship and there's good lyricism all involved. So honestly, would check anybody who likes indie music, go and check these guys out, but make sure you listen to them properly. Don't just listen to 30 seconds, because I don't think you get the full experience that is the Nova Teens.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to be switching gears a little bit away from the indie rock, although I do love a lot of indie rock, to be honest. But no, we're gonna switch over. We're gonna cross the Atlantic Ocean to the United States, to Brooklyn, where Saint Ahmad, a rapper, singer, dancer, songwriter, is based. So his music is very like soulful R&B with some very cool like retro hip hop kind of vibes in it. It's so good. I was blown away. His music's super infectious, and it really reflects like the confidence and empowerment that he's sort of found from being like an out and proud gay man. And just living his true authentic self, and like you can so feel that in the music. It's actually fantastic. So he's released 2 singles at the minute. So his first one is It's Just Me. So that's the debut, super smooth song about love and being free with someone. It's really quite funky as well. Like there's some really cool kind of like almost like funk vibes in it. Really recommend. The second single is called Clouds, which is like really, it's the first one I actually listened to out of the 2 of them. And it's really cool. And like the whole like concept behind it is like, it feels quite different for me. So it's kind of like he was saying like, it's sort of about like letting go of the pressures and that sort of thing, especially like from the pandemic and that. And also like, you know, looking at his like sexuality and how it relates to like smoking weed, which like it just all works together so well. It's really cool. Like it's such a good song. So highly recommend that. So yeah, so go listen to those 2 singles. Hopefully we're getting some new music from him soon, because I, for one, am so excited about this. So definitely check all that out.
That sounds amazing. That really does sound amazing. And I always love the different music, regardless of the genre, just because of who it's written by, can say something so different from anything else. I think It's so important, especially, you know, given that, you know, it's Pride Month, and these things are so important for people to be able to have a voice, because it's so much easier to have a voice through music than it is to just say something. So it's always reassuring to hear things like that, to hear that the artists are doing things like that. So that's really exciting, and I'm not a huge fan of R&B, but I do obviously appreciate it. But I'm gonna go and have a listen to that, because I think that does sound really, really good. Now, for my final discovery, we're going to go back across the Atlantic to the UK. I'm very UK centered this time. I think just the things that I've been listening to, and this is closer to indie rock than you were, but quite far away as well. This is a band. They're called Scarlet Riot. They're very, very hard rock. They're very, very metal. I've actually did feature them on the radio show, which just shows how much I've been listening to them. But honestly, even if you're not a fan of hard rock and metal, I think these guys are worth just a quick listen, so you can appreciate how tight they are as a band, and how strange that they are not into the mainstream, because they sound just as good as any hard rock band that I've listened to in the last 12 months. So they're a quintet, and they are female vocal led, which is something I particularly enjoy, because I think it really complements having a slightly higher register voice with the heavier sounds. But this band demonstrates that absolutely perfectly. So if you want to have a listen to this, then I would start with their latest album. It's called Invicta, and it embodies just everything that you want from a heavy metal band. There's heavy guitars, there's lots of drums, there's lots of heavy riffs, and you know, songs like Human and Gravity are just absolute rock numbers that I really enjoyed. And I think the biggest thing for me, and if you are not into hard rock and metal but you like really good production, this is also another good album to check out, because the drums in this are insane. Not only can you hear the drums, they're nice and tight, using lots of compression and gates, but they don't just sit underneath the mix. There's lots of clarity there. And a lot of times I feel when you get heavy music, it can be difficult to ensure that clarity comes through. So just for its production value, then I absolutely recommend anybody checks this out. If you then are interested in more, there's another album called Regenerate, which they produced in 2017, which I also loved because I really, really, really do like this band. So if heavy metal and hard rock is your thing, or female fronted rock is your thing, this is definitely a band to check out. But if it's not, just check them out just for the production value, because it is absolutely excellent.
Awesome. No, I do love, like, of the hard rock that I listen to, which is not a lot, I'm not gonna lie. It's like the female fronted ones that are like my favorite for sure. Because like, I don't know, there's something about like just the way that they like sing, and like how, like you were saying, I guess, like how it works with the rest of the music that goes like with it. I really like it. But anyways, I'm taking us back to the United States. And we're going to go and have a look at Tony B, who is based in Nashville, Tennessee. He's a singer-songwriter as well, with, you know, 90s and sort of like early noughties R&B influences. So the newest single that he's got out at the minute is called Doubt Me. And it was sort of written at a time when he was trying to kind of find his stride after moving out to LA for a little bit. So it's really cool, because it's sort of like, it encompasses that sort of idea of like self-confidence and like vulnerability, and like living to like 100% of who you are and like your authenticity, which is just super, super cool. He's also an openly queer person of color. And with this single that he's released, like this is the first sort of single that he's kind of been like talking about it like publicly, like with everybody. And it really sees him kind of opening up about his experiences as like a queer person of color. And like in his own words, actually, which I think like this sort of like hits the nail on the head. He's like, it's super important to me now to live openly because representation and visibility 100% matters. Because he was sort of talking about how like he didn't see anybody who kind of like looked like him and was like him in the music industry and that kind of thing, but having that representation really like makes a difference to people. If they see something, they can be it too, you know what I mean? And yeah, so we also got an album as well, which he put out in 2020, which is really, really good. So that's called Flashing Lights, and there's 3 songs on it that I think are absolute crackers. So 2 a.m., Take a Loss, and Say It To Me are all absolutely banging. But definitely recommend having a listen to Doubt Me, but also listen to the album because the album's great. So yeah, really amazing things coming from him there.
Oh, well, that sounds awesome. And I'll definitely listen to the album because I feel like that is one of the best ways you can really understand an artist's music and their journey. So 100% go and listen to that. Number 3, guys, that is all our discoveries for this episode of the What's Happening Music podcast. But if you do want to check out any of those artists that Michelle and I have discussed, then check the description wherever you are listening to this podcast, whether it be on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, SoundCloud, wherever it is. All those links to those artists will be in the description. Now it is time that we get some music on. So this comes from an artist called Matt Springfield. This is called Things I've Said, and this is the Jelly Hasnut remix. I really enjoy this, so hopefully you guys enjoy this too.
Time in your eyes, I'm sorry for this way. No one can tell how I'm feeling. I wanna be with you every day. It's been so much time that we know each other. I wanna feel your heart. I hope we'll meet soon. I wanna breathe your body next to mine. My love is sweet, even though I've never seen her. My beauty queen is on a screen again. My girl is sweet, even though I never feel her body. My thoughts are clean, I wanna feel alright. I spend my time in your eyes. I'm sorry for this way. No one can tell how I'm feeling. I wanna breathe your body next to mine. You make me believe in love. My love is sweet, even though I've never seen her. My beauty queen is on a screen
Welcome back to the What's Happenin Music podcast. Michelle and I are back, and we are joined by an absolutely amazing artist now. And this artist comes from Leicester in the United Kingdom. So if you're not in the United Kingdom, then hopefully you know where that is. And if you don't, it's okay, because music transcends all boundaries. So it is absolutely amazing to have C-Beem on the show. And just welcome to the show, C-Beem. How are you doing?
Oh, it's amazing to be here. Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, music does transcend all boundaries, definitely. I 100% agree with that.
Good. I'm glad we're on the same page. So for any of our listeners who doesn't know who C-Beem is, could you quickly give a little bit of an overview of your music and what someone who's wanting to listen to you can expect to hear?
Well, a lot of people say, where did you get the word C-Beem from? Why do you call yourself C-Beem? So maybe it's a good place to start there, is that it's based on the character from the film Blade Runner. And at the end of that movie, a fantastic movie, you've got this sequence where Roy Batty, this genetically engineered character, is dying. And he gives this speech. He says, I watch C-Beams glimmer out the Tannhauser Gate. And it's a fantastic piece of prose. So I decided to use that, and it's quite enigmatic, really. You don't know what a C-Beam actually is. You know, it's from the Philip K. Dick novel originally. But so I decided to use that, and I changed the spelling a little bit. So instead of C-Beam, B-E-A-M, it's B-E-E-M, and it makes it just a bit easier for search purposes, so that once you have got that, you'll see all the references come up rather than mixed in with all the Blade Runner references. But I thought it had a sci-fi feel to it, and that kind of ties in with the sort of music I make, which is not necessarily science fiction music, but because I use a lot of synthesizer and keyboard work, and some very wild and wonderful sounds, it fits in with that. And I've also got this strange little feature on my keyboard called a D-Beam. And when you wave your hand over, it goes, it makes all kind of crazy noises. So I like that. So I thought I'd kind of tie it all together with C-Beem. And it might seem a bit unusual, but it's kind of working. People seem to like it. I'm going to stick with it. And yeah, the music is pretty, to put it in a nutshell, pretty 80s orientated. But without trying to be like a novelty. If you put your heart and soul into something, you put your passion into it, it won't be a novelty, it will be for real, and it is for real. So I'm kind of looking backwards and bringing forwards, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I was gonna say, I love synth, first off. So
I'm glad to hear that.
But yeah, you totally do get those sort of 80s vibes, and you talking about how you've sort of got that kind of, I guess, sort of sci-fi kind of link. I can totally feel that in some of your music. It does feel very sort of some of them feel a little bit sort of almost surreal, when you're listening to it, and some of the lyrics and stuff. It's very, very cool. It's very unique kind of sound, I think, especially in music right now, the way a lot of sort of popular stuff is, and that really sets you apart, which is very, very cool. But with this kind of 80s influences, is there anybody in particular that you sort of were listened to maybe growing up or whatever that you're
Loads really, but I mean a lot of people have mentioned the Bowie reference, the David Bowie thing, and that's undeniable. I can't get away from it. I've loved Bowie all my life. He died, he has so much more to give, I reckon. Very sad. But Bowie, a huge influence, and Depeche Mode, we've got Tears for Fears, we've got Simple Minds, Psychedelic Furs, Peter Gabriel, another one who navigated his way through the 80s fantastically. And I just think there's a place in music at the moment to get away from the kind of the typical guitar-led sort of indie sound. I'm not slagging it off, it's still good music, but I just think some kind of lost something. I was listening to New Gold Dream, A Simple Minds, about a year ago in the car. You know that album, New Gold Dream? Yeah, apps, just magical. It's like listening to a diamond. If a gemstone made noise, that's what it would be. It's prismatic. It's wonderful. I thought, if only I could come up with something a bit like that. And so I've tried. I don't know if I've succeeded, but that's one of the sort of driving forces behind what I'm doing. So it's difficult to put it into words, isn't it? But yeah,
I think you did a pretty good job there. And I think when you say your music's very very 80s. I like to throw the adjective retro in, and not in a negative way at all.
No.
And I think, like I've said before in certain reviews that I've done of your music, that you produce music unlike anything that I've heard, really, because you are bringing that 80s influence in, but it's in a very contemporary way.
That's the hope. Yeah, as I said, I don't want it to sound like some kind of novelty thing. You know, it's there was a reviewer called Craig, who runs a couple of blogs. One of them is called Beelzebub Bubble.
That's an awesome name.
Yeah, it's awesome, isn't it? Yeah, he's a very insightful guy, and he follows my music, which is really nice. And quite recently, he said C-Beem is like a time traveler from the 80s. Now, at first, you think, oh, what do you mean by that? Hang on a minute. But he kind of spoken about it. He does mean it in a positive way, that it's bringing forward something, but kind of reinventing it, rehashing it. I believe that Trevor Horn has done something quite similar recently. He's done a reimagined sort of 80s album. So I'm certainly not alone in this. And I like to think that there's a kind of new wave coming. You know, a post-punk new wave, and you can hear it already in some of the tracks, and even in the mainstream. You're talking like Blinding Lights by The Weeknd, Midnight Sky, Miley Cyrus, Rain on Me, Lady Gaga, Ariana Grande. You know, these are tracks which are undeniably 80s influenced, and I think they're going to set the pace for things to get away from the usual hip hop and rap and stuff. You know, that's the hope, but. That's looking at it from a selfish point of view, from my own point of view, what I like in music, which is not necessarily what millions of others like in music. That's just the way it goes. Yeah. The reality.
Well, it's like a very personal thing as well, right? So like we all have like different things that we latch onto, whether it's because like it's what our parents listen to, or like what we grew up with, or like because it really just hits like a personal spot, like. So, and I think that's like one of the nice things is like I know people who have like similar tastes in music to me, but it's like there's always something slightly different, and like that's what I think is so great, that it's just like it's so personal that it into something different, even if there are like shared similarities.
That's the joy of music, and if we all had the same tastes and all listening to the same stuff, what a boring world it would be.
Literally.
Sometimes we don't always get what we want. We want people to like what we do. We want our creativity to drive home. But sometimes they'll just say, I don't like this. It just doesn't do it for me. And you can't change that. That's just the subjectivity of it. It's kind of to be celebrated and take the ego out of it, you know. You're gonna you can't please everyone. You kind of focus on those who really do enjoy what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just kind of almost alludes to what we were saying before, that music it's this entity that can transcend boundaries, and you link with people who like similar things to you, which, and I also think you do touch on upon it. People like certain things, and that's maybe why people are liking some of the things you're doing, because there is a bit of nostalgia thrown in there while being contemporary. Now, I guess a really good trajectory from that is, you did your whole album with a synth, and you were like, this is the sort of style.
You mean Little Jet Angel, the first?
Yes,
Little Jet Angel, the debut album.
Yeah, the debut album, all on a synth. How did you? Because you must have gone through some sort of thought process, right? I'm going to do it like this, but I don't want to sound too all 80s glam.
Right.
How did you kind of work out that?
I was quite disciplined with myself, because the temptation was to start adding lots and lots of guitar to make it sound more contemporary, a bit like the Killers. They were sort of But I thought, if I do that, it's going to sound like a lot of other people. And I think to make this really stand out, let's just no guitar, absolutely none, just pure workstation keyboard. I've got a great kind of studio in a box, a Roland FA08 synthesizer, and it's just like having 100 keyboards in one. It's a fantastic thing. I wrote the whole thing on that, really, and that was the guiding influence behind it. And I like to think it's made I produced something quite special with that. Yeah.
Amazing.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no,
I'm not sure if I've answered it very well there.
No, I think it's I think you did. It was just that process of what you went through to go, this is how I'm going to produce the music that I'm going to produce.
And also when you're producing music on something as versatile and fluid as the Roland Workstation or the FA08, the ideas come as you go. So you may put a few sort of arpeggios down, some sequences, and then maybe some chords to fatten it up, and you build up the sounds almost sculpturally. And that's how I found with each song. And in all of the cases, I didn't actually have a song in my mind before I went to the keyboard. It was very much, let's see what happens. And sometimes that can give the most magical results, rather than dwelling on some tune that you've had knocking around in your head for months and months. It's kind of a lot of the time, it's more fun just to sort of be spontaneous, see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, I was just thinking, like the music from your debut album into your newer stuff, it's like there is a slight sort of change. And so I'm just kind of wondering, like, obviously all musicians like go through a growth process and sort of like experimenting with new things and adding in like different instruments or adding in like a different vocal technique and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So is this kind of like you sort of like experimenting a little bit and seeing like what happens?
I mentioned the sort of no guitar credo that I adopted for Little Chet Angel, and I thought, never say never. As soon as you start self-editing and saying, right, this is the way it's going to be, it will change inevitably. So that's what's happening right now as I'm producing the tracks for the next album, Neon Gods. There are parts when I think it really needs a guitar. This is going to sound so cool with a guitar. So there's no point self-editing to the detriment of the quality of your music or what you're after. So now I feel it's fine to add some guitar. I don't play brilliantly, but I think I can play kind of reasonably well enough to add what's needed. And so that should be interesting. Yeah. So that's going to be still predominantly an electronic album. Yeah. But some guitar in it, as long as those guitars behave themselves, they'll know their place.
Well, you can't really blame the player if they're being a bit egotistical.
That was a bit, it sounds very disciplinarian, that, but no, I just want the guitars to be meaningful, just to be where they need to be, and just do exactly what's needed. Because otherwise, when you have a synth-led kind of sound, it's very easy to swamp that with guitar or distort the message of the song, the sound of the song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. No, I think I can kind of like agree with that. I think like it's nice to have it in as like a complementary thing. Like
yeah. Certainly Neon Gods will not be guitar-led. No.
Yeah.
Maybe one day in the future, if I get better at guitar, who knows? But this is still going to be a synth album. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Safe to say that.
And I guess like a bit of it's linked to it, but a little bit of a trajectory away. As someone who, this is obviously a very solo project for yourself, how do you find and this is really just for any musician who's listening, thinking, well, I want to produce things myself. How do you find the production side of it, the actual recording and mixing and balancing? How do you find that?
Well, lockdown, as I was talking about this on another show with Radio Northwich, it's been so awful. We can't sort of say, isn't it great, lockdown? It's been for a horrible reason. But you get what you can out of things. And I'm quite a solitary person anyway, so I've found that all kind of okay to dig in and get work done. I can tolerate huge amounts of my own company. And I have a long concentration span, very, very long. I can just apply myself for hours and hours until my ears go numb. So I just really enjoy the whole production process. If somebody is more gregarious and more band orientated, you have to go where your heart takes you and join a band and get with it and with other musicians. I feel quite comfortable in my own skin at the moment, but don't know how I might feel in some years' time. But yeah, you follow where your instincts take you, and yeah.
Well, and just like also just in terms of like actually like doing, I guess, like the promo side of it, like doing, like getting it all together, like, because you're having to do that sort of like on your own. Like some people thought somebody who can like help them, fine tune everything and like somebody who's like social media guru and that kind of thing. So like, how have you found like that side of things?
Well, it's been an education, and looking back at the promotion for the first album, Little Jet Angel, I was useless. I just didn't know how to promote that thing at all. I had this naive idea that you can just plonk an album onto Spotify and all the streaming channels, and suddenly you're going to get a whole audience of people all want to listen to you. No, sorry, reality check. You've got to promote yourself. You've got to do things that lead up to the release of a single or an album. You've got to have a lead up, and that's something that I've learned now after the release. People are streaming tracks from Little Jet Angel. It's not as much as I'd like. That's the reality of it. Whereas it's going much better for my more recent tracks, the next album, because I've actually promoted them. I've little stories, much more activity on social media. You know, it's not just Facebook, it's Twitter, it's Instagram. You know, I can't say that I want to bury myself into social media all the time to the expense of creativity, but you do have to put aside a little bit of time, you know, maybe 1/3 or 1/4 of your time. That's the advice I would give to promoting and you know, getting little snippets of information out there and get people aware of you, and then the results should be much better. That's what I would say.
I think that's a good way to look at it. Social media is one of those things that's just unfathomably huge, and when content is at our fingertips and it's so easy to digest or just skip something, you know, you have to, I think the snippets of information is quite important. Now, I guess another medium which is quite a big thing, and I think it was more revolutionary in the 90s when this became a real kind of place for people to engage with music, but music videos. You've done quite a lot of music videos, and
yeah,
I think
found a great one. Great one.
I think they are just as, I don't want to say out there is the right term, but they're definitely, you know, like the music, they're just a little bit different than what you would find as a mainstream video.
Like you say that, yeah. I always think you have to try and do something that makes you stand out a bit. There's all different ways of doing that. You know, you might be somebody with a very unusual sort of voice. So maybe your video should reflect that in some way, in the kind of iconography and imagery that you use. Or, you know, maybe you're a really freaky looking band and you dress in a really eccentric way. Use it, absolutely, because it says your video is a visual analog to who you are. And kind of remember that I read somewhere that the optic part of our nervous system processes information thousands of times faster than any other sense. So when you put a video out, you are driving home your music in a fundamental way, much beyond the ears can. They're hearing it, they're looking at your music, so to speak, much quicker than they're hearing it. So that's something I've always remembered. I thought it's important to make videos. And I used to be a graphic artist in the computer games industry. That's been a really useful experience. And I'm away around computers, done a bit of animation. So the recent one for Sweet Song, the most recent single, is purely animated. And that was good fun. It was done quite primitively using sort of stage by stage screens and then put together in Windows Media and stuff. So it's a bit jerky, but I kind of like that. So I was looking for something a bit psychedelic, but because it's based on a panda character, black and white, I thought, let's have something that's monodelic. Let's have black and white psychedelia with using elements of Yellow Submarine and Sgt. Pepper and see what we can come up with. And I didn't make life easy for me because it took ages. It took a long time to do. I was almost driving myself mad with it, but I hope the end result was worthwhile anyway. I think it fits with the nature of the song.
Yeah.
I hope so.
No, yeah, well, I also just really like pandas as well.
You like pandas? Yeah, that's it. You're okay with me. Pandas are great.
But yeah, no, it's very cool. And like Jamie was sort of saying, like your music videos, I feel like are like quite a good reflection of your music, and like the kind of, I feel like grand's not quite the right word for it.
What's that? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said that your music videos are very sort of like reflective of your music, and like kind of brand's not quite the right word. Like
brand. Oh yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. Brand sounds a bit corporate, but
yeah, like
I know. Yeah, no, it's just making it's just your imprint, an expression. Yeah, your expression.
Yeah, no, they're very cool. I'm just wondering like where you get some of like the inspiration for some of them. Like, because I watched as well like your music video for Tinfoil Hat.
Yeah.
And that one's very like, it's very cool. And I'm just kind of like wondering like where, like, how do you come up with the
you know something, it sounds incredibly dull to say it, but one of the driving forces for creativity can actually be lack of budget. Okay, limitations can really push you forward. If you've got loads of disposable income, thousands, millions, then in a way it sort of dilutes it. You can do anything you want, so then what's the kind of the special thing in it? But if you've got limitations, you can make them work for you. So in the case of Tinfoil Hat, that was done with a mobile phone or just a normal cell phone, and just using just simple things like sweet wrappers over the lens in the same way that you use gel on a camera. You can create that mysterious sort of effect that I wanted, bearing in mind the subject matter of Tinfoil Hat, the conspiracy theory, someone who's a bit off balanced, it works quite well, adds to the sense of mystery. And just when you zoom in on ordinary things and take them out of context, you can get some really interesting things, like just like that bit with the sort of solar device, it zooms in. That was just a projector, just a movie projector. But when you go in close, also if you go in close to LED lights, they start flashing in synchronicity with the hardware of your camera, so you get that kind of flashing, pulsing effect, like a hypnotic effect. And that worked in tandem with the ideas in the song. So you try and marry the theme, the visuals with the theme, and you're onto something. But yeah, it was all done on the cheap, and cobbled it all together in Windows Media, and another one that worked out well. Yeah.
It looks great, and the fact that you say you've done it on the cheap, it
cost nothing. Actually.
It wasn't something that even crossed my mind when I watched it.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad you didn't say, God, that looks cheap. Yeah, this guy's got no money. He's got nothing.
No, it definitely doesn't exude that at all.
But if it does look like that, at least you can say, well, he's a starving artist. He must be creative.
But there's that too. Money doesn't necessarily mean something's good. I think that is a very good lesson to take away.
It doesn't always follow. It can do. You can produce amazing. Money can help. But yeah.
And I guess it's just a little kind of link to that. Have you done a lot of work with samples?
No, I haven't not got into samples at all. I didn't want to do a Paul Hardcastle kind of thing, or BAD. Remember, they were into samples a lot, weren't they? It's not something that's really interested me much. Not yet. But I always try and keep an open mind. There may come a time when samples might be just really good. I might think, oh, why didn't I get into this before? But so far, it hasn't really sort of appealed to me.
Well, sorry, just to switch gears a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I was just still ruminating over Tinfoil Hat a little bit, and because I literally listened to it again just like an hour ago. And so and I was just kind of thinking you sort of talked a little bit about kind of the inspiration for it, or what the song's about. But it just sort of got me thinking as well, about some of your other songs and that sort of thing. I know we sort of talked a little bit about how you've got that little bit of a sci-fi streak. But just some of the inspiration for the lyrics behind your music as well. Where does that come from?
Well, I've been lucky enough to be well acquainted with books and literature. I do read a fair bit, not as much as I hope to. I've also I mentioned Bowie earlier on. I've always been very attracted to the abstract nature of his lyrics. They're very poetic and yet not always that easy to assimilate. Now, there is a school of thought in songwriting that everything should be very obvious. You want to get the message home. You don't want it to be inaccessible. I get that, maybe, if you're doing kind of more mainstream music, but I've always been attracted to songs that have a sense of intrigue and mystery, and Bowie did a lot of that. You think, what? I remember listening to Ashes to Ashes when I was a nipper, and I thought, what the heck is he singing about? What is that all about? Ashes to Ashes, dust. We know Major. I didn't know what a junkie was, you know. But I still loved it. I don't think you necessarily have to understand the immediate message of a song for you to like it. Sometimes it commands more listening until you do kind of get to the bottom of it. So yeah, I've always liked to try and take a sidestep with lyrics, not to be too full on, but actually take it from a sideways angle. You know, what's the psychology of the character who's singing this? It might not necessarily myself, my own experience. It could be secondhand experience, or what I imagine to be the experience of someone else. And in the case of Tinfoil Hat, it's imagining the experience of somebody who suffers from paranoia, who's really into conspiracy theory, believes in the Illuminati, believes in this and that. And ultimately, the song is not actually about the phenomenon. It's not to pour cold water on those phenomena or belief in them. It's actually really pouring cold water on when it gets dangerous, when people want to take up arms and get antisocial, the amplification effect of social media to drive people into behaving in really dangerous ways. That's really what the song is about. Mm-hmm. It's if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally.
I don't think there's anything wrong with believing in UFOs, and I've believed in UFOs myself. You know, I do, but it's really the attitude behind these things that's when we need to get a wake-up call. You know, when you see the things that people are putting on social media, very ugly things.
Yeah.
No, definitely. And like, just to agree with you, like, yeah, the universe is so huge and massive. I think it's like super, very human of people to take that sort of exceptionalism that like we're the only thing out there. But,
I think that's just my dad was my late father was a planetary scientist and astronomer, so I grew up with that, you know, all my life. This fascination, but that's where the sci-fi thing comes from, I guess. You know, that fascination in the outer universe. And you're right, you know, there's billions of galaxies. We're alone? Come off it.
Yeah, literally. No, that's very cool. But yeah, no, you totally get that with Tinfoil Hat for sure. And like, yeah, it was just like, I was just thinking about it and like, it's really lyrically like interesting as well as like musically.
Glad you like it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I guess while we're talking about music, and just because this was something that when you first released it, I think I must have watched it like 10 times or something to try and really grasp what was going on. But the Ed Straker feature.
Oh yeah. Good old Ed Straker. Yeah. just I understand where it's all coming from, but there might be some people who don't. So can we just dive into that ever so slightly? for anyone under 30, or 40 even. Yeah, it's based. Ed Straker Future is a single. It's based on a TV series by Jerry Anderson. It was on TV late 60s into the 70s, I believe. And to cut a long story short, it's about a guy. Ed Straker is apparently running a film studio, but actually he's defending the Earth against alien attack. So it's called UFO. And it was a live action program. It wasn't with all the marionation that Jerry Anderson did. You know, this was all live action. Ed Straker struck me as a really funny, sort of intriguing character because he was this 60s idea of what a futuristic person would look like. You know, that silver helmet haircut, you know, the Mandarin collar, a bit Dr. Evilish, you know. It was a very kitschy program. It was absolutely brilliant. And I thought, I'm going to write a song about that, you know. And so I hope that kitschy, sort of slightly ironic feel comes through.
It totally does.
Even if you might not know what it's about. Yeah, quite a few people said, who the hell's Ed Straker? I like it, but who's Ed Straker? Again, doesn't matter. If you like the song, you might maybe Google it and find out who he was. Some people did. Yeah, now they're more aware of the delights of UFO.
I think it's always a good thing to be able to draw from things in the past, that things have happened, whether it is something cultural or even something that you could call, you know, an historical significant moment, to bring that into music and look at it in a contemporary guise, I think is
what I did try to do with Ed Straker, because you got the retro idea of him as somebody defending the Earth against aliens, and it's all kind of utopian in a way back then. You know, there wasn't this sensibility that all the damage and the attack on Earth is actually from us. Mm-hmm. That didn't really exist back then. It was alien attack. But now, bringing that whole theme to the present day, it's really the enemy is us, the enemy within. It's coming from the ground upwards. We are doing immense damage to this planet. You know, so that's why it leads to the chorus, Ed Straker, what did they do to our future? They're getting away with murder. You know, so it does go into a socio-political sort of flavour to it. But I hope it's still fun anyway. Still fun to listen. Yeah.
No, definitely. Well, and I think it's also like one of the things that I really like about music is like talking about those issues and also like making it accessible to a lot of people, like through music and through different types of music and like, you know, because it does have that sort of fun bit to it as well. So it's kind of like
you don't want to put people off. You don't want a boring song. You got to get people in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just kind of nice, like how it sort of like combines all together, and then we are able to sort of talk about, you know, everything that's kind of going wrong or things that are problematic. But yeah, like you said, like it's not boring, or it's, you know, it still brings people in. And
even if it's a foot tapper, that's okay. You know, yeah, that's fine. You can work on different levels.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about a lot of the music that you have produced, and obviously you've got a new song that's out, we'll play at the end of this interview. But you've alluded to you have a new album coming. So what is next for you as an artist?
Just in general, we have got another single coming up called Monkey Puzzle Tree. So there should be a pretty cracking video for that as well. Hopefully it won't cost much. Budget, yeah. But we've got the album Neon Gods coming up, hopefully at the end of August or into September, and that will obviously feature Ed Straker Future and Angel Hill and Sweet Song, and all these tracks have been releasing, and I'm really looking forward to it, getting it out there. So I almost feel a sense of impatience, you know, but yeah, we'll get it sorted.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, we're really, really looking forward to that. But I think that's probably it for this. So I was wondering, we're really excited to play Sweet Song, and I was wondering if you wanted to introduce it. You can give us a little bit of background about it, just so people, because I feel like your music's quite complex. So if it's got like a little background story, like go for it, just to give people that extra context.
Yeah, so Sweet Song. It's really about trying to keep your life simple. You know, don't get too distracted by things that in 100 years' time, no one is going to give a hoot about. You know, that's the thing. And if you do that, if you try and keep your life more simple, you'll have more space for your loved ones. You'll be able to interact with them much better than your head full of rubbish. You know, so keep life sweet and simple. That's the message.
Oh, I love that. That's such a good message.
I hope that comes through.
No, definitely. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us. It's been so nice talking to you and finding out.
Thank you too. Thank you.
So yeah, if you want to just do a wee introduction to the song that we're going to play.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sweet Song by C-Beem. Enjoy.
a sweet song held together by me and you, and there's nothing we have to prove. It's a sweet song, 'cause it's true, and everything will fade. All the world unmade. Just go along with it now. Make good use of it somehow. As long as we move to the song, the sweetest song. Hear my sweet song, the best that I can do. Hear my sweet song, no devil's tune. Where it comes from, your guess is good as mine. Got the feeling right now, it's somewhere quite fine. Hear my sweet song chime, the rest is up to you. It's my sweet song's time to chase away the blue. Place it grows on, someplace sunny and high. So my sweet song says, drink it like wine. Everything will fade. All the world unmade. Got my sweet song, help you along. Everything will fade. My sweet song, help you along.
That was Sweet Song by C-Beem. Hopefully you enjoyed that, my friends. And I'm afraid that is all we have time for on today's What's Happening Music Show. If you like this, then please let us know. You can follow us and find us on Twitter at WH Music Show or What's Happening Music on Facebook. This podcast is shared on SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts, as well as a few more other places. So if you would like to share that with any of your friends who might like this, we would very much appreciate it. Also, let us know if you liked any of the music that we discussed, or if there was music that you would like us to discuss in future episodes. You can hit us up on Twitter and Facebook, or you can drop us an email at whm@advosound.com. Thank you once again for listening to this podcast, and we hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.